President Clinton today signed the Financial Services Modernization Act, allowing banks, investment firms, and insurance companies to enter each other's markets.
Former Secretary of the Treasury, Bob Rubin, who worked very hard on this.
We want to strip back parts of Dodd-Frank that prevent banks from lending, and that'll be the number one priority on the regulatory side.
One area where you have personal experience is obviously banking regulation. Are we headed in the right direction right now? The administration wants to roll back a lot of Dodd-Frank.
The '08 crisis, virtually nobody saw the magnitude of downside potential in our financial system that then occurred in '08, and we absolutely had to have financial reform, and we did. And I think much of what was done was very good. The Consumer Protection Bureau, for example, I think was very good. I think that what we need to do, we need to take a cost-benefit look at everything that's happened under Dodd-Frank, and then we can decide what makes sense and what doesn't make sense.
Well, what do you think makes sense? Do you
Consumer
think
Protection Bureau makes sense. I think strong capital requirements make sense. I think the measures that were taken with respect to derivatives made sense, so I think we should be doing a good bit more, and I have just pretty specific ideas of what I think they should be. I think there may be other measures that, from a cost-benefit point of view, don't make sense. We have to focus on systemic risk. Now, one of the problems with Dodd-Frank, the shadow banking world. There are a large number of activities that take place in the financial world that aren't covered by Dodd-Frank. This is not a criticism of Dodd-Frank. I think much of what was done in Dodd-Frank was necessary. But by not regulating the shadow banking area, what it's done is it's caused a lot of activity that had taken place in the banks or the investment banks to move into the shadow banking area where there's very little effective regulation.
A lot of Americans distrust institutions, in part because leading up to the financial crisis, they saw a large number of former bankers heading into government, right? They see that, again, they see this revolving door mechanism where people from Goldman Sachs and other banks are, deciding what our economic policy is, and they see that as benefiting the banks and Wall Street and large institutions, but not the average American. Do you understand that concern, and is it a legitimate way of seeing the world?
There has been a tremendous loss of confidence in institutions in America, and it's a very serious problem, because how can our democratic society succeed if we don't reestablish confidence, not just in government, but in the media, and really in virtually all of our institutions, except for the military. My recollection is, except for the military, level of confidence in virtually all institutions going down tremendously.
Media included, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think, and I may be wrong about this, I don't think that's because bankers went into government. I think it's because the system has not worked for most Americans.
Yeah, but you have Democrat senators out there saying, all the administration is doing is hiring, quote unquote, fat cat bankers from Wall Street who are going to benefit, Wall Street and large corporations and not take care of the average person.
Well,
my question is that a legitimate concern?
Let me try to answer your question this way with two answers, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Number one, I came from Wall Street to government. I spent 6.5 years there, and the only focus I ever had, and that we ever had, was on trying to figure out what would be best for our economy, and more specifically within that, as President Clinton said repeatedly, for middle-income and lower-income Americans. I don't think it's a question of where people come from. I think the question is, if you get people with experience can be very useful. If you decide you don't want people with experience, they're simply not going to, I think you will lose the benefit of that experience. However,
there are all kinds of different experiences, right? Like, it doesn't have to be just running a bank or just working at a bank.
Oh, there are all kinds of experience, and we had all kinds of experience in our administration, as you may remember. However, if you come into government with a good deal of experience, and I did come with a lot of business experience, you also have to recognize how much you don't know about policy and about process. And so what you need to do is surround, and this is what I tried to do, surround yourself with people who understand the broad panoply of policies that you need to deal with that you really never had a reason to experience in the private sector.